Hello, everyone. This is Whitney Well, and I am here today to talk about the week ahead. We are talking about the week July 25th through the 31st. So our last week of July, our first full week of Leo season, and it's a big week. Yeah, so we kind of start Monday about midday on Pacific time, really dropping into this potent emotional space with the moon heading into Cancer. Now we're also in the balsamic phase of the moon, so that is the phase right before the new moon, and that phase invites us deep into meaning making, into the unconscious, into kind of the potencies of the inner world. It's about kind of wrapping up psychologically and emotionally the past month, and hopefully getting some rest, which is hard to kind of do on a Monday. But and I think as much as you can kind of give yourself like a soft startup to this week, and right, instead of how can I be the most productive, be like, okay, what does success look like? What do I really need? How can I balance meeting my own needs, including my emotional needs, this week? Because there's a lot of intensity this week, but it's also the intensity of the dark moon, which has to do with our unconscious and the places where we maybe don't have as much solar perspective, right? Sun, the light of consciousness, on our own behavior, our own desires. And so, right, sometimes we will kind of behaviorally start acting out with ourselves. Maybe a little bit of self sabotage, maybe saying things impulsively, that represent deeper needs or wishes or feelings that we're not expressing directly. And so when we come to this space with the intention just of being here and allowing ourselves and being present with ourselves and not trying to push ourselves to be in the more solar realms, then we're going to see just a lot calmer expression, right? It's kind of like, yeah, it's like working with kids. If you are just wanting to see the behaviors without the connections, you end up manifesting the opposite. The connection needs to happen first, and so too with ourselves. If we want ourselves to be able to perform and produce and behave in this sustainable way, that needs to come from the connection, and the opportunities of the new moon is to really to drop into ourselves and listen to the voices internally that maybe we're too busy to listen to the rest of the time. So that moon moving into Cancer on Monday really helps us do that. Now on Tuesday, we have Mercury square Mars. And so this is kind of the first of just a series of very intense astrological lineups that happen. So we have Mercury square Mars. Mercury is in Leo, where it's going to be a little bit more rash in the things that it says when Mercury's in fire signs. And Mars is in Taurus. And these are both fixed signs, which means they have this sense of this is the way that things are, and we've figured it out, and this is what we're doing. And so when we have a square from the fixed signs, it's very kind of entrenched. There's a lot of digging your heels in. I'm not going to compromise, because if I compromise, then I'm, negating something really powerful. And so this is a pretty angry alignment. And right when we're talking about Mercury and Mars, we're talking about fighting words. And so we can find ourselves kind of in a standoff, and to relieve the tension of the standoff energy, we might say something pretty impulsive. And it might be true, but it's probably not helpful. Or it might be something that we really need to say, And so in that way, it might be helpful, but it's not going to feel good on one side or maybe both sides. It's not going to feel good to say it. It's not going to feel good to hear it, and maybe both. So that is Tuesday. And so after that perfects, we're probably feeling that already. It might culminate on Tuesday. After that perfects, it might release a little bit. On Wednesday, the moon, on Wednesday night, the moon goes into Leo. So the moon is going to move out of Cancer and more into Leo, out of this kind of feeling space and into this more trying to find itself and be really present. And we have a new moon on Leo, in the morning of the 28th on Thursday. This new moon happens at 5 degrees of Leo. It's our kind of yearly new beginning in that space in our chart, that time to touch into that space in our chart and to see if we are engaging with it authentically. So that's going to be finding that space, finding the house that Leo occupies in your chart, and just, maybe on Wednesday night or Thursday morning, building into your routine a little bit of a meditation or journaling about that area of your life and how you're engaging with it. Because right when the moon and the sun come together, we have the kind of the intuitive, soulful, physical, embodied parts of ourselves, as symbolized by the moon, coming together with the light of consciousness with the sun. And so they can really kind of get on the same page. And so, it's a wonderful time to set intentions, not as goals, but just as alignments with your authentic self in those areas. So we have this new moon in Leo. We also have Jupiter stationing retrograde on Thursday. And so when we're talking about a giant planet like Jupiter stationing, that doesn't mean like it goes like, stop that day, right? It's been slowing down for a while, but this is the day of pause. This is the day of rest. It's resting in a certain part of the zodiac, and it's resting at almost 9 degrees of Aries. And that's going to be in a trine to the new moon. So in contrast to the Cancer new moon that we had a month ago, that was square to Jupiter. Squares are conflicted. They're of the nature of Mars. They're about challenge. They're about kind of the crisis of needing to make decisions. A trine has a lot more harmony to it, right? They're both happening in fire signs. There's the urgency of fire, the passion of fire is being supported. And so we have this moment of pause, the sun and the moon coming together. They're in a trine to the station of Jupiter. Jupiter is pausing at 9 degrees of Aries. And so we have this kind of holy, divine fire of inspiration and enthusiasm and connection with the authentic self, which really the fire signs are going to give us that space to really kindle authenticity within ourselves and give us the kind of passion and the drive to do whatever we need to do to live in harmony with ourselves in that moment. So that's really cool in terms of a new beginning. Now, Mercury also squares Uranus. So this I see as really like if we've got the embers of a new moon, if we have Jupiter stationing, kind of the smoldering ember as well, that Mercury hitting Uranus is the spark that kind of sets everything on fire, because Mercury square Uranus is that insight of seeing things in a different way, of seeing why you've been getting it wrong, or of seeing like the simple solution. And so that Mercury square Uranus is really like this like line of like, okay, the way that things looked before Thursday is not the way that they're going to look after Thursday. And we've got this beautiful kind of restart moment in this new moon to kind of hold that energy. We say like the thing that we've been wrestling with for the past month, like Mercury square Uranus can just be like, you know what, I'm done with that. Or it can be like, now I understand this. And so it's kind of this whole other thing. So it's just a really profound restart moment, it's a very new moon. We're not dealing with like the long continuum of Saturn. Okay, so we've got that new moon on Thursday. By Saturday, we do confront Saturn. So by Saturday, Mercury is going to oppose Saturn. So we have the Mercury square Uranus kind of make a break for it on Thursday, have a conversation that's going to change everything, get that moment of inspiration, you know what you need to do, and then Saturday you deal with what it's actually going to take to do that. And and so that can be really helpful or not, right? The opportunity part of it is like, okay, let's make a plan that has structure and timing connected to it, Saturn. But it can also, right, we can run into the more pessimistic version of Saturn being like, is this even worth doing because it's too hard, right? I think when we're talking about Mercury in Leo and Saturn in Aquarius, what you're looking at is Mercury inspired with its own message in Leo, basically receiving no response from Saturn, right? This cold kind of impartial audience of Saturn in Aquarius being like, yeah, you're doing whatever you're doing. Is it relevant to everyone else? I don't know, right? And I don't know. It's not super comfortable to not get that response, especially for Leo, which wants feedback. So there's a little bit of a chilling effect there. Now on Sunday, the 31st, this is kind of, one of the most important alignments of the whole year. And it will carry over into next week, and a good portion of it happens on Monday too. But basically what we have is the North Node together with Uranus, together with Mars, which if you want to head to YouTube and check out my Leo season forecast, I go pretty in depth in this. This is a breaking point. This is, I cannot stand the way things are any longer. We are going to make changes happen very, very fast. And so it's almost like a mini eclipse, I think. It's bringing a lot of things to a head, and that North Node creating the urgency of things need to happen right now. Things need to come into being right now. And Uranus is going to want radical things to come into being. And Mars is going to be like, I'm gonna do it. We're just gonna do it. And so we can see these kind of very sudden and very profound actions being taken by people. Now, the sun will also perfect that trine to Jupiter that it was approaching during the new moon. And so that is going to fill us with confidence and enthusiasm, but possibly an inflated sense of our own importance and our own purpose. And so the theme for this one is really bigness, right? And we're getting that bigness from Jupiter, but also the potency of having Mars together with Uranus on the expanding edge of the North Node, which is of the nature of Jupiter, in that it makes things bigger. So that's the week ahead. There's a lot there. Yeah, I think, right, it's using the balsamic moon to really get in touch and attune with yourself so that you don't run into kind of self-sabotage. Then, right, the new moon really honoring the reset button of the new moon so that, right, we can channel that leonine heart-centered way of living into the next lunar month, recognizing that Mercury's opposition to Saturn is going to ask us to make it practical and sustainable. And on Sunday and Monday and the resolution in the next week, you know, dealing with those big changes internally or externally, globally, collectively, personally, interpersonally. I'll be back next week. I hope that, whatever happens, whatever is happening, it is serving to bring you closer to the path that you're looking for. Okay. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.